Welcome to Sisters of the Soil, Keepers of the Lineage, where we dig deep into land, memory, lineage, and soul.
We're so honored you're here.
This space has been 3 years in the making, and today we want to share how it all began, how curiosity became calling.
So I do have a question for you. What made you curious about tracing your family history?
Well, what made me curious about tracing my family history began about 4 years ago when my dad passed away. And it got me to really, I was going through, my grieving period, and just really my mind stayed on him a lot and growing up and things we would talk about. And I remember having conversations with him where he would always mention that, the Alexander side, is big. You have tons of cousins. And but when he would say that, I would say, well, I started thinking, well, I probably can count on both of my hands the cousin that I actually know and know them by name. But other than that, I couldn't tell you, what the names were of those other cousins, or even how, if they were standing right next to me, knowing that they were my cousin. So it led me to really, really want to know more about his family for that reason, but also for the reason that growing up, I knew more about and spent a lot more time with my mom's side of the family. So I knew a lot more about her side of the family as opposed to my dad's. And so I decided in the spring of 2022, after my dad passed away that January, it prompted me to just say, okay, I think I want to learn more about my dad's side. And also, after traveling home to Mississippi and visiting, I became aware that my cousin on my mom's side had already begun the research into our family history on that side. She had tested my mom. She had tested my mom's sister, who was her mother, and had tested several cousins. And so I said, you know what? This is it. I want to do that. And I want to do it and start with really, honing in on my dad's side of the family. So I purchased an ancestry test, and I submitted my DNA, and then I waited. Now, the waiting game, I think, was the hardest because it's like you're anxious, you're wanting to know, you're excited. And once you get that test, and you sign up, you register your kit on the Ancestry website, and then it prompts you to, well, while you're waiting for your test, get started with building your tree. And so, while I was waiting, I did start that process of building my family tree with what I knew, as I waited. But the anticipation was just a lot, just waiting and waiting and going in. And when I would go and sign in, hoping that the little status bar would have moved to, the next step in the process. And so once I got my test results back and I received my DNA, well, of course, you want to know about your origin and, where you came from and what your makeup is as far as your ancestral origins, what you're made of, but my main thing was wanting to know who my people were. And so I have this match list of these people, and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing, okay, I do see my mom, right off the bat was my top match as my mother. I saw my aunt. I saw my first cousins, some of my second cousins, and I'm like, okay, most definitely, no, these people are on my mom's side. But then I started looking at my paternal side, my father's side, and I'm like, I don't recognize these people at all. And I almost was like, okay, I'm excited, but then I'm not excited because it's like, what do I do with this list of DNA matches? If I don't know anything on his side and I don't know these people's, the people that have submitted tests on his side, I don't even recognize any of the names. How am I going to go about even attempting to learn more, with what I already had put on the family tree. So, you get to really researching more about how do you go about, um, you know, the ancestry journey. And I started to see that people were saying you should submit more relatives, to be able to branch off and really dig into your family history. And so I started thinking, well, my dad's passed away, he's gone. And, I really wish I had gotten his DNA. If I had found out, I really had a desire to really start on my, ancestry journey, I would have gotten it before he passed
Mhm.
away. But I started thinking of who else on that side could I get to submit a DNA test. And so I started saying, oh, okay, I can get some of my dad's siblings. I started looking into his siblings and was able to. My uncle Willie and my aunt Katie were willing to submit their DNA, and so from that point, I submitted their DNA to Ancestry, and of course, I had to go through the whole waiting game again, the anticipation, and all that stuff. But once I got their results back, then it opened up a whole lot of stuff. I was able to really hone in on if people were matched on my dad's mother's side or my
Mhm.
dad's father's side. And it just, from that point, the curiosity just grew. And so, but yeah, the very first thing that really, got me curious about that family history was the onset of my father's death.
Hmm.
What about you?
I would say that my grandma passed away about 3 years ago, and I knew that she had a lot of brothers and sisters. From what I was told, I did meet one of her brothers that lived here, in Nashville, but other than that, I didn't know anything. And then,
Mm.
on on my mom's side, her dad, I didn't meet him till high school. Like, I didn't meet him until I was in high school, so I never knew about his parents and stuff.
Mhm.
So I was like, who are they? I knew her first name, but I didn't know her last name. And then, so I think that's what got me interested. And then I saw you, I saw you getting on there, talking to family, getting excited about your ancestry, and I'm just like, man. And I think a couple of times I saw you talking to like family members, messaging and stuff, and I was like, huh, that seems interesting. And then just listen to your excitement, and you just making discoveries and finding more about your dad side of the family made me want to dive in and say, I would like to know more about, my family and
Mhm.
learn about where I came from and, where did we originated from,
Mhm.
surnames that you really don't think about. So I think that's what got me on. I think your excitement of doing it made me get interested and want to find out more about my family and, who were my great grandparents. So.
Yeah. But yeah, that like Capria said, just you know for a certain point, and then you don't know, and that
Mhm.
unknown is what I think it sounds like two of us what drove us to really want to get
Mhm.
started, with our family history. Um, I have a question for you. Like, what do you think was the first discovery while researching your family history that would that changed everything for you? What you think what that first discovery was for you?
I actually had two discoveries that really just set the tone for me to keep uh, diving in. I think the
Mm.
first one was we share a match.
Mhm.
We're not related,
Mhm.
but we're related to somebody. You're related to them on one side, and I'm related to this person on a totally different side. And
Mhm.
so I think her granddaughter messaged us and was like, "Hey, have you guys been on 23andMe?" Because she was telling us that she found some matches, and you know, the more you put your DNA on different platforms, the more you can find out too. So we decided to do 23andMe,
Mhm.
and what stood out the most was my top match on 23andMe. And I'm looking, and that name came across, and I'm like, who is that?
Mhm.
I don't know who that is. And so just as quick as I'm messaging her, just as quick as she's messaging me. And I'm just like, who are you and how we're related? And she was like, well, she gave me her name,
Mhm.
told me that she was adopted and that she knew that we had to be related through her mom because I did not match up on 23andMe to her half sister, and her half sister's on her dad's side. So she knew that much.
Mhm.
So I said, okay, who are your grandparents or your great grandparents? And she was like, she gave me the names, and I was like, I don't know them people. Who are they? And so I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they're the siblings of my grandpa's parents or something. And she said, well, we have a family historian, and maybe you could talk to her. I said, okay, no problem. So I talked to the family historian. She was, well, who your grandparents and great grandparents? She gave me the same exact names of my other cousin. And I was like, I still don't know who they are. And so she was like, okay, well, we just need to see if you match up to us because we're talking about 23andMe. And so I was like, okay. She told me she was on Ancestry.
Mhm.
I said, okay. So I deleted my people off that I knew and put her grandparents, and then I put their parents on there. She said, well, there's something on Ancestry called Through Lines. And I said, okay, well, I don't know nothing about Through Lines. So she explained it to us, because I think that's how you found out about Through Lines, through her. And I'm
Mhm.
like, we don't know nothing about no Through Lines. Well, she said, that's how you can figure out how people are matched to you, but you have to give it 48 hours because it's going to compare different people's trees. I said, okay. So I put them on there. Now, mind you, when I'm doing my research and I have my grandparents and great grandparents of who I thought they were, no matches, nothing, and I'm looking on there. So put them on there. Waited the 48 hours. I call her, okay, walk me through this through line. She's like, okay. She walked me through it, and I just gasped. She's like, what's wrong? And, I wanted to cry. I got all these matches, and well, name some people. So I start naming some people. Yep, that's my cousin. Well, of course, if they her cousin, they my cousin because they're showing up in my matches.
Mhm.
So I'm like, oh my God. So it's funny because she looks at, well, she didn't look at me. We're talking, and she's like, ah, bet you the other family. I said, other family? She's like, yeah, James Parker was a Rolling Stone. And I was like, oh. And then we realized, no, that ain't what happened. But she's my second cousin, one time removed. And so you would think if somebody, and so same thing with you. I
Mhm.
asked my uncle to do it so that I can have a match on my dad's side, and then I asked my mom to do it
Mhm.
so that if a match come up and it says my mom's side, I can log into her DNA and figure out mother or father's side. Then the same thing with my uncle. If it says my father's side, I can log into my uncle's DNA and see
Mhm.
mother and father. So I always know what side.
Yes.
So I took that trick from you. And
Mhm.
so I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I don't know who James and Maddie are. I don't know them. And it's just like, but it gave me a sense of peace because now I got some names that I never heard of. Now
Mhm.
I got to figure out how we're related. So I think that was a big shock to me to know that Maddie and James are either my great grandparents or they my second great grandparents, and just trying to work through the guidelines to figure out which one they are. But still,
Yes.
that discovery of finding family, I didn't even know it existed because all this time, all I'm thinking to myself is Kirk Summers
Mhm.
Johnson.
Yes.
And now just add in some other surnames, which is Parks and Sales,
Mhm.
just blew my mind. And I think the other story that blew my mind was I didn't know anybody through my grandfather, my mom's dad. Like I knew who her mother was and grew up with her like you said, I stayed a lot with my family on my mom's side through my
Mhm.
grandmother, but I didn't know nothing about my grandpa. Only thing he told me one time was we were related to my Magic Johnson. And that's all I knew. But one day I'm on there and I get a message from my cousin, and we're just sitting there talking. And I'm like, I don't know how we're related. I said, but hold on. So I knew it said my mom. So I looked into my mom's DNA and it came back father's side. I said, oh, well, hey, this is my grandpa's name. And this is his dad's name. And this is
Mhm.
his mother's name. And I never met them, but I think they're from Western Mississippi. That's all I know.
Mhm.
So the cousin comes back and was just like, oh my God, can you call me? And I'm like, call you? What's going on? "M- My grandmother said that your grandfather is her brother." And I'm like, huh? My
Mm.
grandpa never talked about his brothers or sisters
Mhm.
except for one. And I met her when I was little, and I think I only met her like 1 or 2 times, and that was it. But that was the only sister that I knew of. I didn't know that he had another sister. And the crazy thing about this story is I grew up in Illinois
Mhm.
all my life, and this sister lived in Chicago. And I'm thinking to myself, my grandpa living in Gary, why did we not meet her? So I go to my mom, do you know a Mary Kitchens? So my mom looks at me and was like, yeah, that was my dad's sister. And I met her when I was in my early 20s, and you were a baby. Couldn't be more than 6 months old.
Mhm.
But, she passed away because your grandpa passed away in his, mid 80s. So she just assumed that she had passed away because, she didn't hear nothing. And I said, Mom, hate to break it to you, I think she alive. And my mom looked at me like, get out of here, no. I said, no, I got this number. We got to call. So we sat down, we called, and then, hey, baby. And it was my great aunt. At the time, she was 94 years old. And that hit home that all these years, my mom thought she was passed away because she only met her one time. And lo and behold, she's 94. She's in great health, great memory. So she remembers a lot about,
Mhm.
my granddad. And so my sister just had a baby, and we were going to Chicago for the baby shower.
Mhm.
And I made sure that I stayed an extra day so that I can go meet my 94-year-old auntie. And to this day, I still ask about her. I still check on her. And I make my business that every time I go to Chicago now, I make sure I have to visit my auntie because, I don't know how much longer she's going to be here, but any information I can absorb for her, about my family, I want to know.
Mhm.
And to me, my auntie is the only thing that I have alive that connects me to
Mhm.
my granddad. I don't have any more living grandparents, but I look at her to live that dream through my grandpa. Like I didn't know much about my grandpa, but now I have this aunt who can give me information
Mhm.
about Western Mississippi and
Mhm.
and stuff. So it's just amazing to have a relative that has lived that long
Mhm.
and to see that she's 94. Well, now I think
Mhm.
she's 96 now, but she's still alive. And so
Mhm.
I can't wait to go see her soon. I think, soon I'm going to go meet her and stuff.
Mhm.
But to see that Maddie and James Parks and
Mhm.
to see my auntie and making that connection really just changed the
Mhm.
way that I look at ancestry and changed the way that I just look at things to be able to find your aunt through
Mhm.
this process. And it was a surprise to me because that wasn't I didn't get on
Mhm.
Ancestry to look for aunt. I was on there and to have that, I think that was
Mhm.
mind blowing for me.
Mhm.
And I thank God
Mhm.
for me getting on Ancestry because now I discovered that I have a whole big family, like you said,
Mhm.
in Chicago. So,
Yeah.
and I
Mhm.
made connections to this day. I still talk to
Mhm.
two of my cousins. They're my
Yeah.
mom's first cousin. I still talk to them. We text every once in a while, hey, how you doing? Like you do, and
Mhm.
just, how things going. And so we still keep those bonds going. So
Yeah. I think for me, my first discovery, while researching my family history, that really changed everything for me was once I submitted my DNA and got in there and discovered that there was a messaging part of the website where you could actually reach out to these DNA matches or they reach out to you. That's where my first
Mhm.
discovery that I found that changed everything for me was getting that first response from a match that was on my
Mhm.
list. And so, I believe that first, I don't know what the very first match was, but one that reached out to me, but there was one in particular that I just want to briefly talk about that um, was one that was kind of like a bond formed, and it subsequently led to me actually meeting this cousin in person. It was my cousin Marcus.
Oh, is that the guy from Chicago? Oh,
Yes,
okay, okay,
that guy from Chicago.
okay.
He's actually related to me on my mother's side of the family. And I'm not sure if I reached out to him or he reached out to me. And it actually was not on Ancestry, but was on 23andMe. I think I may
Mhm.
have reached out to him. I do know that during that time I was just so anxious to want to make connections that I was just sending out messages to people saying, "Hi, hi cousin. Nice to connect
Mhm.
with you here, how are you and do you know how we're related?" And so I made contact with Marcus on 23andMe. We started talking and chatting through the or the 23andMe message part of the website. And from there, we just, it became something that was regular, like 2, 3 times a week. We were on there, going back and
Mhm.
forth. He telling me about who his mom and dad were, his grandparents were, me answering back with mine. And from that point, exchanging phone numbers and then talking on the phone, texting. And so with us making that connection and starting that communication, discovered that he was in Chicago. Well, before I moved to Tennessee, I lived in Chicago for over 20 plus years. So this really was excitement for me because I knew eventually I'm going to meet this cousin because
Mhm.
I do frequently travel back to Chicago to visit. So I was really excited about that. But the thing that surprised me the most was that once we really got to talking on the phone, it just, everything just clicked. It was just natural. It wasn't like we were contacting each other and the conversation was strained or,
Mhm.
because we were strangers. It just seemed like we just jumped right into just talking and like we had known each other for years. And so from making that contact over from those phone conversations, something that stuck out through in one of those conversations was I always knew, on that side of the family, there was a family secret. It was always just, we have a family secret. I would go to family
Mhm.
reunions and get to talking to cousins, and then all of a sudden, there's like, we got some kind of family secret. And I'm like, but nobody ever said what the family secret was. It was just there was a family secret on that side of the family. And so for him to, in the midst of one of our conversations, mentions, "Well, did you know we have a family secret on that side?" I'm like, "Oh, wow. You know about this family secret, thing too?"
Mhm.
It was like so weird to have to hear him, this person that I met off of an ancestry website, tell me he know about this same family secret. So yeah, and believe you
Mhm.
me, if you're out there and you're thinking about really starting your family history journey, you're gonna find that I don't know, and I don't think it's just isolated to Black families, but just any family I'm sure has family secrets.
Did y'all have things that were in common? You know.
Um, you know, um, Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot. we did discover that we love to run our mouths. I mean, like none. I mean, it was so funny during our first meeting. When I met him, believe it or not, Capria's mother accompanied me on meeting him when I visited Chicago. So it was me and her mom, and he brought his fiance, and we met downtown Chicago for dinner. And it was so funny because Capria's mom just sat there, and then his fiance just sat there, and we're just yapping away. And then it's like 3 hours that went by. And we're talking up a storm. So I did find that we love to talk.
See, that's kind of like my cousin.
Yeah.
We both cancers. So I think that our birthday is like 5 or 6 days apart. So that's something we had in common. But the thing was, we found out we were both crafty.
Yes.
Like she was talking about making stuff. I was like, making stuff? What you make? And so she sent me, so she's saying, but then how we do the shoes and the green crates and stuff. So I sent her some shoes that, we did, and come to find out, we got a lot of stuff in common, more than what we thought. And I said, oh, this must be a family trait. Our family is very crafty. Like, y'all talk a lot, we craft a lot. So, and that was interesting because, like, and then you start to meet these people, you start to realize even your mannerism, are the same. Because you remember that guy we met not too long ago? Did you accompany me? And him and my mama, because he's related to us through my mom, and we went to Lebanon to meet him. He's a truck driver. He's from South Carolina. Him and my mom, first of all, they look alike. I'm like, what? But he started talking, and he said some words, and I'm just like, we looked at each other like, ooh, yes, even. So like, that was crazy because, I mean, my mom said certain words in a certain way. And I mean, he said it the same way that she would. And I was like, oh, y'all related. And so it's just weird how family traits come together. Like, you don't see it until you get to talking and you realize, well, some families talk a lot, some people craft, some families are athletes, some families are this, and then you start to realize, how do you fit in this family?
Yeah.
And you start to realize the pieces are starting to come together because you guys have a lot of stuff that's in common. You might talk alike, might walk alike, you might do this alike. So it's just weird how it all comes together.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I think just with making contact with the different, like in-person contact with them, it just sealed everything, as far as the closeness. It brought a sense of like wanting to know more about my family. And, it drew me in to really, really want to discover more and more relatives. And not only in Chicago, but, locally here, and wanting to meet them because it's not just about, I'm finding out with this whole thing, it's not just about the immediate family. You got family members that are scattered all over the place, all over this country, in other countries, believe it or not.
Sure do.
I've even made contact with some cousins that are in other countries, and you will hear more about them on later episodes. I even went to Canada and met one of my cousins.
Oh, Miss Jessica.
Jessica.
Yeah, she was. It's like you.
She's related to me on my mom's side too.
And the thing about Jessica that stands out the most is the bond. We were supposed to go eat lunch. Did we go eat lunch?
Yes.
Honey, lunchtime turned into 8 hours or just
literally we had lunch with her and got up from the table, walked outside of the restaurant, and stood on the street in front of the restaurant. I mean, it had to be at least 5 hours. We were standing, just talking and talking and laughing and talking. It went from being daylight to nighttime. And we're still standing on that sidewalk right outside that restaurant. Restaurant had closed up. And we're still
out there yapping. So you ain't lying. Y'all do talk
we
a lot.
Love to talk.
Yes, you do.
Yes, that side of the family. Oh, yeah. I'm finding out my mom's side of the family, they love to talk.
Your mama love to talk. Your mama Dukes can talk.
Yes,
Yes,
she can.
yes. So
Yes.
apple don't fall too far from the tree, honey.
I'm discovering that out from all this
Yes.
research that we're doing in this family history. Yeah, traits. You do realize the traits
Yes.
that run in your family, and
these are
that you
people-
have.
And these are
traits
people you never met either. So that's the crazy thing. These are people you never met, but you start to pick up on, ooh, sound like me. There's a couple of your cousins you talk to, and I'm like, that's your mom. You like, yeah, that ain't mom. I'm like, who? So sound like her. So it's just weird how that all falls into play.
Yeah, but you would be amazed at, what you would discover once you get that desire to want to dig deeper. And with all of this, digging deeper has brought us here to wanting to share this experience and this journey of us, discovering our family history, but going on to help others, discover theirs. That it started as something that was just a curiosity, as we said and told you earlier, to this whole calling. It's like an actual calling to want to just be able to know more about our families, but to offer, any guidance and help that we can give to those out there that may want to know more about their families. Thank you for listening to part 1 of From Curiosity to Calling.
Tune in next week for part 2.
We are Sisters of the Soil, where we honor what was lost and uplift what still lives.
Have a good night.
Good night.